So let's describe each of the 6 systems and how they're connected to the deep front line. So we should start with your arches and how they become weak. Now, when we're talking about the deep toe flexors, these are the arches, and these are these muscles here. And they essentially connect all the way through to the arch of your foot through here, and they're responsible for drawing up your arch. And so obviously they're the very bottom of your deep front line. So if they're not engaging, the very foundation of your deep front line, the very foundation of your entire body that's responsible for stabilizing your entire skeleton, that's not working. You can't start the entire chain activating because the bottom hasn't actually turned on. Now when we talk about a weak core, we'll just scroll up here. We're talking about these muscles through here, but we're also talking about this big transverse abdominis. And you can see here how it attaches all the way through to the very vertebrae and to the very little edges of these transverse processes through there, and all the way through to the front. Now I've just got one side of it here. Usually it'll wrap around like a big corset. And so it's responsible for providing stability to both the entire spine, and you can see here it's attaching to the entire edge of the pelvis through here. So it's providing stability to your whole lower back and to most of your pelvis as it attaches all the way around your spine. So obviously when that's weak, you're going to have real instability through your lower back and through your pelvic area. Now, weak glutes, we're talking about these muscles here, your glute max and your glute medius. Now, they're not directly a part of the deep front line, but the deeper glute muscles, these ones here, like your piriformis, the muscles you can see here in this diagram as well, they are part of the deep front line. And so what happens is these glute max, your big strong muscles that you need to move your body, when they engage, they end up contracting and being connected to the deep front line, so that you, through the piriformis and through these other smaller glute muscles that are part of the deep front line, so that you can create heaps of power but still be anchored and connected to the stabilizing force of your deep front line through there. And again, obviously if these are weak, you're going to run into problems because you're not going to be able to create the power to create movements. You're going to end up engaging in compensation patterns. Now, your pelvic floor is a really important set of muscles through here. And the reason for that is because they provide all the stability to the sacral joint. You can see how strongly connected they are through here, all the way through to the sacrum and the coccyx through here. And so what these muscles do is they help assist in closing the sacroiliac joint and locking it. They also have extremely strong fascial connections. If you have a look at this diagram here, you can see they have extremely strong fascial connections straight through to the adductor muscles, so that when you have tension in your adductors, you're going to be naturally tensing your pelvic floor, and alternatively, when you tension your pelvic floor, you're going to naturally tense your adductors. So what your adductors do, your pelvic floor does. What your pelvic floor does, your adductors do. So these things are really interconnected strongly, and so that if you have a dysfunctional pelvic floor, you're going to have dysfunctional adductors and vice versa. Now, your oblique chain, these are a set of accessory muscles that help you provide power, control, and stability when you're doing high intensity stuff like change of directions and jumping and twisting. And so they're not strictly a part of the deep front line. And what you'll see here is that they cross the body in like X's. So you'll have one on each side that'll go like that, and you'll have one there on the front of the body, and in the back of your body you'll have one that goes from your lats to your glute max on both sides, like a big X through there. Now these guys again though are connected through the deep front line, through that adductor muscle on the front, and through the glute max straight through to those deep lateral rotators that we showed a couple of minutes ago. And so essentially it has really strong connections to that deep front line, which means again you can create power through these rotational lines but still be connected to the stability of the deep front line, so that you're not thrown out of control when you're changing directions, when you're jumping, when you're doing highly athletic things. Now finally, we have the balance system, or the proprioceptive system. Now the key with this system here is that it's not concentrated in one area of your body, but it's actually a set of sensory receptors and neurons that go across the entire body. And they are concentrated, so your sensory and balance receptors are concentrated most densely in the tissue of your deep front line. And this makes sense. Your deep front line is responsible for giving you all the stabilization in your body. So you're going to want all your balance receptors in there so that they can pick up when you're not activating and you're not balanced and you're not stable, when the deep front line isn't activating, so that they can pick it up and tell you to change your movements and your patterns to stay on balance. And so you'll find sensory balance receptors heavily populated through this entire chain to achieve that role of keeping you balanced and in control. And obviously, in the case of OP patients, you'll experience that most of them do not have very good balance and that you struggle to maintain your balance and control when you're making movements. As you can see, every single core weakness, every single of the 6 functional systems is encapsulated in the deep front line. So all the reasons that you have OP can be described by weakness and dysfunction of the entire core musculofascial chain called the deep front line. So obviously fixing OP is about fixing and strengthening the connections within the deep front line. Remember, it's an integrated web. It wants to function as one unit. It doesn't want to be separated and strengthened, because you could go ahead and strengthen your glute med to try and fix your hip drop and strengthen your glute system. But your glute system is only as strong as your core above it and your arches below it. They don't function well unless they're integrated in the deep front line. So whole body functional rehab, where you're engaging yourself from head to toe, means that you learn how to engage your deep front line, which is going from head to toe, and you can therefore learn how to dissipate load when you're running, when you're jumping, when your foot hits the ground, from the very bottom of your feet all the way to the top of your head, not allowing it to get stuck and overload in your adductors, allowing you to fix your OP.